Let's try it again. Hey there, welcome back. I'm Amanda, your life coach with Illumination Unlimited, and with me once again is the charming and handsome Brandon.
Hello.
Hi. So you might notice anyone that watched the video that we posted last week. You can hear us. Oh,
it's like we had no sound.
Yeah, so I bet you realize you can hear us a lot better now. So we learn as we go, and we've got these handy dandy microphones that we got for Christmas, thanks to his lovely mother. And so we decided we would utilize those and see if we can make this one better.
Our voices ought to boom now. We did check it and test it, so
yeah,
we're good to go.
We're ready to roll. So what we decided to do, we are going to be taking that video from last week down because you can barely hear it on full volume. We decided we're going to redo that video. Of course, you know, we'll add some variations. We might have some things to add or take away from it, but we are going to continue on with the topic of Valentine's Day and how it affects relationships. So as I mentioned before, Valentine's Day is one of those holidays that comes right after the whole gamut of stressful holidays. And so once you get through all of that, it can either be an opportunity to reconnect and kind of decompress together and just kind of come back together and enjoy each other, or it can be an opportunity to create more damage in your relationship. And so it might be like, I think there are probably a lot of people that haven't even considered what they're going to do for Valentine's Day yet, and a lot of people that are already making serious plans. So Brandon, do you think like a lot of guys are already, planning out their Valentine's Day at this point?
Honestly, probably not. I mean, just go to buy any Walgreens or CVS on the day of Valentine's Day, and you'll see a bunch of those guys with that worried look.
Oh yeah,
trying to get those last minute cards.
I've seen it before.
But that's not every guy. So yes, I'm sure some guys are thinking about it. I think there's all kinds of a big range of different fellas how they approach the holiday. But there's certainly that faction that do. They're the last minute. Well, this is a holiday. It's recognized, so I better do something for it. So you'll see them at Walgreens the day of,
exactly,
trying to get some chocolate and a card. Hopefully that'll be enough.
Right, fair enough, and more power to you, buddy, as long as you're doing something. So and gender aside, we shouldn't say, oh, or are the men thinking of it or not thinking of it, and the women are. Gender aside, typically it seems to be there are three types of people when it comes to Valentine's Day. There are those that could really care less. It's just another day, and they're actually, kind of bothered by it a bit. There are those that put a lot of emphasis and expectations on the day, like it needs to be big, it needs to be spectacular, it needs to be kind of over the top. And then there's a third kind of more in the middle, and not to speak for both of us, but I would say we both probably fall into the category of the third one, where you understand it's important to focus on your love, but you also understand that you don't have to get crazy with it. You don't have to get over the top and have
certainly. I think we both agree. That's how we look at it. So that's where I'm at.
Exactly. Which brings me to our next point, which is now either the first or second category, if both partners in the relationship are matched on that, is fine. Like if both partners couldn't give a crap less about Valentine's Day, then.
And as a guy, you understand that is where she falls.
Yeah.
And there's no pulling the wool over you or bait and switch.
Correct.
That is certainly how she feels. Exactly. You've been with her long enough, then cool. And that's how you feel too. Then there ain't going to be any surprises or any tension.
Then it's going to be a fine day. Exactly. Like neither of you are going to make a big deal of it. It's just going to be another day for both of you. If you're both the second one and you both love a mushy gushy romantic, hot air balloon ride, 5-star meal at the fanciest restaurant, if you both are into that, then cool. You're going to have a great time together. The issue, right, of course, if you're the third, you're going to get along just fine, because typically when you can find balance and common ground in the relationship in any area,
not just Valentine's Day, that goes for anything. So it's about knowing your person and knowing your partner.
Exactly, knowing that you're matched when it comes to things like that.
Exactly. So and we were talking about that before. It's just important that you match. If there's any kind of mismatch on expectations, that's where problems are going to arise. And
correct.
Tension and a big blow up potentially.
Exactly. Yeah, if one person's expectations are here and one are here. And generally, it seems more common that the ones that don't really think a whole lot of it tend to be the guys in the relationship, and not always. And then a lot of times the ones with super high expectations can tend to be the females. Um,
Yes, I think that is fair to say with Valentine's Day.
a lot of times that's the case, not and it can be reversed. I haven't seen it a whole lot, but it can be definitely reversed. Um,
It's pretty traditional. That is the
right.
case.
Exactly. And then all of that being said, it is extremely important and ideally, very ideally, early on in the relationship that you communicate about your expectations, not just with Valentine's Day, but let's put that one on the list, but just kind of in your expectations of life in general.
Yeah, it's just really about no. I mean, hopefully you do that in the whole getting to
Hmm.
know each other courting process. You're asking questions, you're knowing, you're learning about the
Right.
person that you're potentially going to be hooked up with. So, um,
Mm.
I mean, that applies to a lot of areas of life, not
Right.
just Valentine's Day. So, I ask
Exactly.
questions. You knew that about me from the beginning. I want to know
Hmm.
as much about the person as you in particular. When we
Right.
started getting to know each other, I wanted to know all I could about you to
And
know.
I loved that. And that
So,
was a little new on me, and it was kind of different for me. It took me a minute to get comfortable with answering questions, but that what that did for our relationship, and then him, reciprocating that and telling me about his thought, like that opened the door to. It just takes one person
right.
starting the conversation and asking the right questions, and both people being receptive to talking about it.
And yeah, and after that, you'd be
Uh-huh.
surprised how just the floodgates open with both people, and
Exactly.
you kind of find out, whether this is something worth pursuing going forward with, and
Right.
you'll know more if you jive with the person, if you
Hmm.
click, and that's pretty important
Right.
early on to start doing that, not finding out things that you didn't want, that
Hmm.
you just don't mesh on later in the
Exactly.
relationship.
And it's important why, like, I emphasize being honest is because if you are trying to sell someone on yourself, and like, look, I get it, like, you want to be in a relationship, you don't want to be single, so you're trying to find your perfect person. But you need to be very careful on both parts to be honest and not try to sell the other individual, like the guy. Don't try to pretend like you're going to be this romantic man that's going to always sweep her off her feet, and then once you guys are together, then I don't really care about Valentine's Day.
Exactly. I mean,
And vice
I'm
versa.
sure people do that in the start of a
Oh
relationship, whether
yeah.
that be the first 3 months, 6 months, a year. They're kind of on the best
Mhm.
behavior. They're showing their best self, and then they just get
Mhm.
lazy with it, and they just
Right.
don't think
And
it's worth investing all that much effort anymore. Which,
mhm.
again, if that's kind of who you are anyway, you wish people would show that at the beginning more so
Right.
than just revealing that later on, because it's just going to lead to problems.
Exactly. And then, like I say, and you don't have to feel bad if Valentine's Day is not your gig, or if you're not real super big on romance and mushy stuff or whatever. But again, it's important to be honest about that in the beginning, so you find someone that's matched with you. And so now, let's say you didn't have that discussion early on, you're into the relationship, you're in love with each other. You want the relationship to work out, and yet you realize, holy crap, we're mismatched. And yeah, that's where the two of you together are going to have to decide to meet in the middle and go to the third option, which is finding ways to make each other feel important and loved, and to focus on the relationship, and then yet at the same time, somebody has to dial back expectations to where.
I mean, it's about comfort. You're not going to
Right.
line up exactly with a person on
Mhm.
every single point in life. It's just not, it's
Exactly.
impossible. People are
Right.
different. Now,
Right.
I mean, if you're perfect for each other, I'm stealing something from
Mhm.
Goodwill Hunting, feel like, but no, I mean, yeah, you're not going to be, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And there's things we're not going to be lock and step on,
Right.
but it's about compromising, talking,
Mhm.
just again, talking,
Mhm.
um, figuring out what works for you two.
Yeah, and where can
And
you meet in the middle?
exactly. And if it's too much for a couple to overcome and it just leads to too much tension, then I
Mhm.
mean, that's just where you got to start asking some questions about
Right.
where it's going.
Right. And then that's where, yeah, you have to know, like, maybe this isn't my person. So it seems like Valentine's Day, it shines a big spotlight on the relationship one way or another, whether it's good, whether it's not, whether you have things that you need to focus on. It just really seems to do that. So it's a really good opportunity to take the time to check in and make sure that everything is still going in the direction that it should be going,
Right.
for sure.
And
So,
try to mean, again, I think it's pretty fair to say that I think women tend to see the holiday. I mean, they put more stock into it. It's more important to, I think, a lot more women than it is men. I think
Yeah,
that's
we
just
can.
traditionally the case. But
Sure.
I think, as a fellow, it's also important to recognize the day, appreciate
Hmm.
that you love your person, show them that, and
Exactly.
just try to find something you guys both like to do, and just have fun with that person. And
Right.
you know,
And again, when it comes to meeting in the middle, let's say, one or both, don't really like to do crowds. And so stay home, like order something in, make a delicious meal that you both love together, like, and think of something. Just don't make the day stressful.
you
That's
don't
the
have to
most
be
important thing.
exactly.
No, not at all. If you try to go out to a fancy restaurant and then realize you're waiting for an hour and a half, that's not super romantic. That's probably going to create tension on the night. That's not even either person's fault. So kind of think ahead.
Right.
That's definitely important.
And that's also key in kind of knowing your person too. Like
Mhm.
if you, I don't think you don't necessarily both have to not like crowds. One particularly might
Mhm.
not, and the other
Well,
might. But
yeah.
again, it's finding some kind of balance there.
Mhm.
And I think speaking for myself as someone that doesn't really care for crowds, it's not a lot to ask to go ahead and do that. If you guys, I
Mhm.
mean, if a dinner sounds nice
Mhm.
and it's a good thing to do, for your person that likes to do that, then I think you could suck it up one night and do it
Right.
too,
And that's
and don't act like a curmudgeon about it. No, just
well,
and again,
yeah.
enjoy it.
Right.
Find any positivity in that day, in that
Mhm.
whatever event you're doing, that occasion,
Right.
and
There's a saying called expect the spill. So say you do go ahead and plan a romantic night out on the town together. So you expect that there could be a crowd. You could, you're going to wait. That there might be some things that happen throughout the night that aren't perfect. And when you're prepared for that,
that goes a long way.
it goes a long way
Speaking from
when you're kind of
experience,
bracing yourself
you
for it.
brace yourself, you'd be
Yes.
surprised. You expect the
You
worst.
can
I mean, not the. Oh, it is the saying.
well,
Expect the
yeah,
worst,
just
hope for the
mentally
best. But
prepare
if you just
for
prepare for yourself, it's not going to be that bad.
right.
As if you expect everything to go 100% perfect,
Mhm.
you're going to be let down most likely, and then you're going to
Right.
start acting out, and you'll probably
Mhm.
project it towards.
Sure, both parties
Yeah,
taking it out on each other,
which,
and
yeah, how lovely.
I know.
Happy Valentine's
What a
Day.
romantic night, exactly. So if you know that that's what's gonna happen, let's just say you're like, "Look, even if I mentally prepare myself for this, I just can't do it. Then don't. Then find something that both of you would love to do. It could be, a picnic in the middle of your living room, in front of the fire, or just whatever.
Absolutely. Hmm.
But yeah, just kind of make sure you're on the same page. And then another suggestion I would make, if you do have things to talk about in the relationship, I would either do that before or after Valentine's Day, maybe not on Valentine's Day, because sometimes if there's some heated stuff going on there, that would have another potential to make the night go bad.
And you may thought, okay, it's pretty romantic to crack out a bottle of wine. Then you start getting tipsy.
Oh
Not a
yeah.
good time for those things to kind of get
Yeah.
disclosed to each other.
Not a good time for Festivus, not a good time for the
No
airing of
airing
the
of grievances.
grievances, because then you might come across as super harsh about something that in normal circumstances isn't really even that big of a deal. Like yeah, it's
Right.
emotions get too out of whack. That's excellent advice. So ideally, if you can, you know, get together before Valentine's
I would think,
Day.
yeah, I wouldn't even think till wait till after. I mean,
Right.
I mean, because
Because if you have issues hanging out in the corner over here that you need to discuss, they're going to still be there for
are
Valentine's
you,
Day. So if you're sitting there trying not to talk about it, it's an elephant in the room.
you pretend that everything's okay
Hmm.
for this lovey-dovey day, and you're just not feeling it. It's
And then it's
fake. You're putting
fake.
on an act. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I think it'd probably just be best to do it before.
That's a really good point. But yeah, I would just recommend not making Valentine's Day the day that you're trying to be romantic and show your love to each other and stuff. That's not necessarily a day to tell your partner what's wrong with them.
Chances are you probably hit a wall after the holidays, during the
Well,
holidays.
right.
So there's probably a lot you have to go,
Hmm.
discuss. After
Hmm.
the fury and the chaos of the holidays are done, and you
Correct.
guys just have a moment to breathe and maybe air some of those things out. And hopefully by Valentine's Day, you're in that place where you can
Right.
show that love for that person on that very special day.
Exactly. And so for next week's video, which again, we are going to do these weekly, we are going to start using our microphones from now on. And
You
so
will hear us.
you will be able to
You will
hear
know
us.
my voice.
You will. And it is glorious.
Thank you.
And thank you. Um, so with next week's video, I was thinking it'd be a good topic to get more into how to communicate, how to have that conversation that you should have before Valentine's Day to make sure you guys are in a good place. Because definitely right off the top, you want to make sure you're not coming at each other in a vicious attack mode. Like, like I say, so we're going to have some good tips and pointers on opening up that communication in a kind and loving way, but still getting your point across and saying what you need to say.
Absolutely. And there
Mhm.
it is a feasible
Oh, it
task. You can
is.
do it.
It is. You can do it, and we're going to show you how. So until then, unless, do you have anything else to add, Brandon?
I'm good to go.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for doing these
Thank you.
videos with
Thank you
me.
for having me.
He's a good sport, and we're going to do a lot of these together, and I am so excited about that. So thanks to all of you for tuning in, and until next time, take care.
Thank you.
Mhm.